expected to begin debate on the budget deal this afternoon. While neither side got everything it wanted, this is being seen as a workable compromise, although not by everyone. Congressman Tim Huelskamp is a Republican from Kansas. Good morning, Congressman.
Hey, good morning.
You were quick to oppose this budget. Why?
It increases spending. It blows a bigger hole in the deficit, and it breaks the word that Congress made with American people, and that's reduce our spending, not increase it. Let's be honest. The claim is that this is a deficit reduction bill. That would happen if Congress kept its word in 2022. So I think that's very misleading from both sides that have supported this bill.
Well, I think it is worth playing what the Republican architect had to say about this. Here's Paul Ryan this morning.
You're not going to get everything you want in divided government. Our budget is what we want. Our budget balances the budget, pays off the debt, and does so within a decade, and that's what we want.
Isn't every deficit reduction package going to involve some sort of trust looking at the long term? You're not going to get rid of the deficit immediately right now in a single budget. It's not possible.
This actually increases the deficit. Getting what we want is actually keeping our current law. Current law is the sequester. What this bill does is increase spending. $65 billion over the next 2 years. It doesn't reduce the deficit. Chairman Wright understands that. Chairwoman Mary, they know that. But to run around and say somehow Congress after the 2022 election is going to cut the budget, that's silly, that's misleading, and folks see through that even during this Christmas time of the year.
So you're saying Paul Ryan is not conservative enough for Tim Huelskamp?
What I'm saying is this is not a deficit reduction bill. In addition, not only does it increase spending, it applies the nuclear option to tax increase possibilities. And requires Harry Reid to have 51 votes to raise taxes as well. It does raise taxes and revenues, and there's plenty of things in this bill to oppose, but to recognize a deficit reduction package.
Raise taxes? Because he will argue to you that this does not raise taxes.
If you fly on an airline, you're going to pay more to Washington. That's a fact. That's in there. It's more revenue. They like to call it a revenue, not a tax increase. But one thing I did talk about is that it changes the rules and allows Harry Reid to push through a tax increase with only 51 votes. I just discovered this an hour ago. It's hidden deep in the bill. I think you're going to see a lot of opposition coming out of the Senate about this proposal. I don't know why they stuck it in there, just to make it easier to raise taxes in the Senate. That's very concerning to conservatives, and most Americans don't want a tax increase either.
John Boehner, as you know, says the opposition to this deal is really coming from outside groups who are influencing those of you on the inside. You may have heard his comments just a moment ago, but he did say they're using our members and using the American people for their own goals, and this is ridiculous. If you're for more deficit reduction, you're for this agreement. Are you and others in the House like you being used by groups like Heritage and the Club for Growth?
I think it's ridiculous that anybody in Washington, D.C. in elective office would complain about Americans getting involved in the process. They disagree. Washington promised they would cut spending. They'd hold the sequester line on spending. They do not want a spending increase. And so when they say this is a deficit reduction bill, we have to be very clear. You viewers that are listening recognize this is only a deficit reduction bill if in 2022, 9 years from now, Congress does what they're promising to do here. But I take offense when, again, anybody in Washington, whether it's Speaker of the House, whether it's Harry Reid or the President, says, you know what, don't tell us what to do, because this is a representative city. We're supposed to represent the views of our constituents, and they don't like this plan. And the more they learn about it, the more are to it.
I think people on the opposite side of this issue from you, on both sides of the aisle, would argue what the American people don't want is another government shutdown, and it sounds like what you're advocating...
This does not end government shutdowns. We still have to pass an appropriations bill between now and January 15th. It might be a different debate if they put the appropriations bill in here. Between now and January 15th, Harry Reid, President of the United States, or Speaker Boehner could say, hey, you know what, this is not enough. This
But if this
deal
didn't
will
happen,
change.
it could lead to a government shutdown before the end of the year, could it not?
No, it will not lead to government shutdown. Obviously, before the end of the year, it's January 15th. But this does not stop a government shutdown. We still have to pass the spending bills sometime between now and January 15th, and there will be plenty of debate about it. I think this debate over the unemployment issue, unemployment compensation, the continuation of that part of the stimulus package, I think the Democrats are going to say, hey, we got to have that before January 15th. That's entirely possible. Harry Reid could choose to shut the government down again over that particular issue.
John Boehner does seem confident that this budget is going to pass. Do you have the votes on your side?
I am not in the whip team that counts the votes.
Have you spoken with them, Congressman?
No, I have not. He spoke in conference for a few minutes and took comments yesterday from the conference as a whole. But at the end of the day, I think the American people don't want this plan. When folks like the Speaker and the head of the Senate say, hey, we didn't get everything we wanted, well, I can guarantee you the American people didn't get what they wanted. They don't want a bigger deficit, and they don't want more spending and control coming out of Washington, and that is what this plan does. You can't change that fact of that this will increase the deficit. And that's what bothers me. That's entirely misleading from these statements, that somehow increasing spending is going to reduce the deficit, and that's not true at all.
Republican Congressman Tim Huelskamp of Kansas, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
1 year after